Hi, this is Mike at Gamefromscratch, and welcome back to our ongoing Godot tutorial series. Today we're continuing to cover 3D. Specifically, we are going exactly where the last video stopped off. In it, we looked at loading 3D static meshes, specifically an OBJ mesh that you can generate basically in everything. Now, an OBJ mesh, again, is static and simple. What we're looking at today is potentially animated and not simple. Specifically, we're going to be loading in and showing animations on a Colada mesh. Colada is sort of a universal format that never took off, but was accepted just about everywhere. It's needlessly complicated, it causes all kinds of problems, but it is sort of the norm. A bit of a heads up, Blender sucks at supporting Colada. In some ways, so do Autodesk. Pretty much everybody kind of sucks at supporting Colada. Autodesk themselves have sort of moved away. They started using FBX. Blender is sort of following along. Blender tries to support just about every format it can, but you are going to run into headaches. And there is one very specific headache we will run into today, and that is multi-animation support, but I will show you a workaround, so no problems there. As with all other series, all other posts in this series, I have assumed that you've watched previous parts in the past, so if I cover something that you do not understand, there's a very good chance that I actually covered it in a previous tutorial. All the tutorials are built with the assumption you have the knowledge that all of the preceding ones presented. So if I cover something and you don't understand it, make sure you check the previous tutorials. Now, and as always, there is a text version of this tutorial available on Gamefromscratch.com along with the tutorial homepage. We're currently sitting at about 16 videos and I think 15 different text posts, so there's a lot there. Any code I'm doing here, kind of coding examples, will also be available on Gamefromscratch.com. I will link in the comments below, as well as to the series homepage and the playlist that is all available in. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm actually recording this video directly after the last video. So you'll notice right down here, this little guy right churning away right there, that's Camtasia processing my video. So if my computer is a little slow, I might be being a little bit overbold with what I'm trying here. Because again, I am processing the last video while recording this one. So hopefully that doesn't cause any issues. So regardless, let's jump right in, create a new project for this guy. We've done this a few 100,000 times already, but let's do it one more. We shall call the, alright, so there, let's create a new folder called the YouTube 2. Great name. I've done a lot of work with 3D lately, so I'm just sort of making names up at this point. Alright, let's go ahead and create that project. There we go. Alright, welcome back to Godot. We'll get the normals out of the way. So basically, let's spit out, oh, I guess it's right there at the top. Create our root node, save our scene. Oops, God, I'm clumsy today. Save the scene, default name is fine. Set that as the starting scene. Starting scene is fine. Alright, close that up. Now, again, we're dealing with 3D. This is part of the, I guess, process is we're also going to have to go ahead and create that camera now. And there, let's position it. I don't know. There. Works for me. And let's go ahead and just add a light. Oops, not add a light to the camera. Let's add a light to the scene. And here, we'll set up a standard 3-point lighting system. We'll put a light there. Oops. God, I gotta stop parenting things. Alright, let's delete that light. Root node. Create another one. We shall put a light there. And finally, a light there. Alright. And make sure that we've got everything set up right. Let's throw in a quick test cube. And render our scene. Ta-da! Alright, so let's move our camera in slightly. Alright, why am I getting no textures? Doesn't particularly matter. Our scene is set up. Our camera is in place. A little too close. Now we're going to go ahead and create our Colada Mesh. Now, Colada is, again, it's an interchange format, and it doesn't work for crap. But it's the best we've got. There is a plugin available on Godot that you can go ahead and download. The text version, I will cover installing it I won't bother here. It's basically a bunch of scripts you download and install into your Blender scripts add-ins folder. Depending on what operating system you're running Blender on, that's going to change. And of course, if you are working in any of the Autodesk software, so Max Maya or the soon-to-be out to pasture, or actually already out to pasture Softimage, your Colada support is going to be much better and much more built in. You also can probably get away with doing multiple animations out of the box. You should be able to do it in Blender. Sadly, they don't work. But I am going to assume a Blender workflow. If you're from any of those other environments, I'm sorry, so you're going to have a couple minutes of Blunderage. I'm going to keep things very, very simple, though. We're going to want a really straightforward example here. Again, I have a full Blender tutorial series. I'll link it below. There's both a video one and a text version one that will get you up from completely scratch. So I'm not going to explain Blender in any degree whatsoever, other than we're going to jump in, we're going to create a very simple model, and it's going to have animation and all kinds of fun stuff. So, welcome to our default scene. Now, an important thing to know here is when we bring this scene in, when we bring in the Colada file that this ultimately exports, it's going to have everything, and we don't actually want everything. We don't want this guy, which is our camera, and we don't want this guy, which is our light. So basically, we just want our scene to consist of the cube, and that's now what it actually does consist of. So, switch over to edit mode, switch over into face mode, and we'll just extrude, extrude, extrude. So there is our simple model. Let's center it-ish, about there. Bring up specials. Ooh, not smooth. That looks a little phallic. Just do a normal subdivide, normal subdivide, normal subdivide. That just gives us something that to actually work our animation with. Now we'll just go in here and Mesh, UV Unwrap, Smart Project, add default. So we just UV Unwrap our surface. Let's apply our standard color grid on top. So over here to texture. Our texture type is image. We want to use UV coordinates. Select our default UV map. You can go ahead and create a color grid. From the last example, I've already actually got one sitting here. Obviously, you would use whatever texture you wished. But now let's split this view out. Let's get rid of some of these side views. All right. So switch this over to the UV image editor, pick our new texture, and ta-da. So let's switch over here to the 3D view. And out of edit mode. Oh yeah, all my lighting's gone. Let's see, we want... I'll go with shadeless over here. That's an easy way to do this. Material, shadeless. There. So that means that the lighting has absolutely no effect on. I don't know if that'll export with me later on. But there you go. There is our very simple object in the 3Ds. So now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and animate it. Very simple animation here. We're actually going to do two animations back to back on the timeline. This is your timeline down here. They're going to have a very similar process in Max or Maya, but basically over time you keyframe stuff to happen using bones. And in order to use bones, we're going to create something called an armature, which is a hierarchy of bones. We got to go ahead and create a bone. Very simple. Hit Z so we can see inside of our shape. Let's orientate about, yeah, so we're around all of the axes. Let's just drop our pivot over here-ish, then there. And there. All right, that looks like a good spot to create it. Go ahead, add, and armature, single bone, like so. And of course, it's always in the wrong direction, so let's rotate on the x-axis 90 degrees, like so. So now we have this single bone inside of our shape. Let's switch over to edit mode, and we will grab that tip. Now be careful how you modify. Never modify or scale things after you've posed. Very, very bad thing to do. So there we've got our first point in, so our first bone, and just do an E to extrude. Let's add another bone, E to extrude, and add another bone. There. So we got a 3-bone system inside of our shape. Looks good to me. Now we just want to go ahead and add the one to the other. So back in object mode, pick your shape, and then right-click, shift, grab your bones, hit Control-P, and say Armature Deform with automatic weights. Ta-da! We now have an animatable shape. So instead of this guy over here, we're going to want to use the dope sheet. Dun dun dun. Actually, I guess we're not going to need it for this because I can't. Here's where you would normally add actions. So this is where you could do bend, jump, turn, blah, 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 all your different animations. Unfortunately, they don't work. So we're going to have to do our animation more or less go our first frame, our set of animation, and then our next frame is going to start after it in the sequence. And I'll show you how to edit those all together. But first, let's just do two very, very simple animations. So we're going to have a total of 100 frames of animation. And our very first bone, right here, our resting place, is going to be bone 1. We're going to switch over, so select your bones, like so, and go here and go into pose mode, like ta-da. So now we're in where we're going to go ahead and shape and set our bones. Select them all, so here, A, and then what you want to do is I for insert, and you're going to set inserting keyframes. These are, think of as snapshots of where things are in time, and they're going to be used, they're going to be interpolated over time to create your animation, which in turn is going to deform the shape that you're attached to. Again, this isn't a Blender tutorial, so I'm not going to get into that much detail, but what we want to do, we'll get them all. So we just created a key for rotation, and scale at 0-ish frames. So we're at frame 1 right now. Oh, it should have been 0. Yeah, let's go back to 0. All right, let's do the same thing. Set. Now let's go, say, I need to do 50 frames per animation, so let's go about halfway into about 25 here. Just grab your second bone, and we're going to do an R about the x-axis. Rotate that guy a little bit. And then we'll just grab this guy, R, X, like so. And then A again, to select them all, I, location, rotation, and scale. And now we'll go back to 49, and grab this guy. And we will go, yeah, we'll go, yeah. Not a great animation, but it's our animation. And location, rotation, and scale. Now, we'll flip over to 50. And there are a couple ways to do this, but first what we will do is go, actually, I'll just set everything back to, so at 50, we can go pose, player transforms, all. All right, so we go back to 0 here, press play. There you go. Simple animation. Oh, damn. Let's go back to 50. Pose. Clear, transform, all. And maybe we should actually tell it. So this is the power of the keyframe. I forgot to actually set one. So there, set the keyframe back. And now let's watch our animation. So our first 50 frames is a bend. And then snap back to normal. Now, starting at 50 here, let's go forward about that far. And now instead we will rotate this way. So obviously in a real world you would be doing something useful, but in this world we're going to rotate around the z-axis a little bit, and then rotate z. So grab them all, set the keyframe, and then we will jump to frame 100, and we will rotate like so. And set them all, and done. All right, so we basically have two animations in the same timeline, from 0 to 100, set back to back. Up, snap back to normal, and forward. Okay? And now we'll go ahead and export these out. You got two ways of going about doing this. I have installed the plugin. I don't know if it's standard. No, it's not there anymore. Oh, I installed it on a different instance. I'm going to just go ahead with the default Colada exporter. If that doesn't work for you, there is better Colada. You can go ahead, again, just Google that or go to Gamefromscratch.com. I'll link to it. There is another plugin you can do if this one doesn't work for you. Chances are it won't work for you either. Welcome to the world of Colada. But if you keep it nice and simple like we've just done here, you should be good to go. So now let's go out of pose mode. Let's grab our object and just give you an idea what she looks like. So there it is rendered. Go ahead, play. So there's our two animations back to back on the sequence. Nothing that exciting, but it does show you the basics of everything we need here. Now let's go forward now and export this sucker out. So File, Export, Colada. Now there's a few settings to be aware of. Once again, they're kind of hidden down here-ish. We shall throw this guy on my desktop because that's where everything goes. And let's call this Box 2. Oh, that's confusing. DEE. There are some settings down here that are quite important. Let's go through them. First things first, we want to make sure that the textures are in fact included. Include material textures, yeah, sure. Only selected, nope. Deform bones only, no, we'll keep it the default settings. And then the last thing of importance, I guess that's about it. Okay, so go ahead and export that. Why are you outside of my bone? Let's see, make sure she still plays. All right, that was just something. Okay, so now here we are back in our scene. Just make sure our scene is saved, because this is a little confusing. So this is one of the things you want to make sure that you save your scene. So new_scene.scene is now saved. Very important step. So now we're going to come on back here, and we're going to go to import. what I just did over here does not matter. Click over here, go import, and what you want to bring in is a 3D scene. Not completely intuitive, but that's what we're bringing in. So 3D scene, come on in here, and it can only bring in DAE files. Now there is work on there's no either way to say this, but ASIMP. There's an asset import standard library for bringing in scenes basically of every file format ever known to man since the history of mankind. There is a plugin available for actually adding that functionality to Godot. It's not standard. I don't know how well it works. There's also some talk in Godot about moving away from Collada or DAE format. But for now, Collada is the supported format, so let's stick with it. So head over to our desktop. So it's box2.dae we brought in, and tell it where to go. You go there. That works. All right, and there are a lot of settings here. Nothing I really want to play with. We just kind of keep everything normal, but you can definitely control how your model is brought in, what they do with it, etc., etc. You can deal with how the textures are brought in as well. And then the key thing is you can also create animation clips, but we're not going to. In theory, you should be able to say how long in seconds each little bit lasts. Actually, you know what? We might be able to go ahead and do this now. Why are you flashing up? Oh, my video just published. Okay, 1 second. Now, there's a couple very, very, very critical things to be aware of here, though, and it's these guys. And this is going to determine where your scene is going to go. And how it's going to treat. So basically, you can update or overwrite when things changes. You can keep have things coming in. So what we want to do is keep the existing, ignore new. So we're basically just going to do a blatant overwrite, and then the next time, if you do the import again, it's going to overwrite over it. So we didn't want new scene to be overwritten by accident. This should actually create a scene called box2.dae. Create a new one and overwrite it. So come down here, we got our clips. We can set this up. Basically what you're saying is make an animation with this name from this location to this location. I'll show you another way to do this, but we'll set it up with this for sure. Now this is going to require a little bit of math on my behalf, which I'm not happy about. We have right here is 100 frames of animation, and our default frame rate, I believe, is 30 frames per second, I think. That makes it 2 point, all right, so that would 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 3.3 seconds total animation, I think. So we'll do about 1.7 seconds per frame-ish. I really wish this did frames instead of seconds, so I wouldn't have to do bad math, but let's start with that. So I'm going to go ahead and do bend up, and it starts at, I hate the text editor, bend up, enter, starts at 0, which is correct, ends at 1.7-ish, and we'll make that sucker loop. And we'll create another clip called bend forward. Now my names might be completely wrong, because like my animations were totally arbitrary, right? And that one's going to start at 1.7, and end at 3.3-ish, I don't know, and it loops as well. So we're basically creating 2 clips of animation using the entire timeline of what we've got available. Why did you not set 1.7, enter, there we go. So that's how you can do them back to back. Now, if you are working with an Autodesk product, your Colada export, and your product supports multiple named animations, hopefully it works a bit better for you and you won't have to deal with any of this. Sadly, you do have to cut them up when dealing with it from Blender. So let's go ahead, import and open. And there you go. There's our model at the origin drawn. So we're actually, what's the word? Yeah, we're inside of it right now. So let's just zoom out a bit, rotate our camera. So there you go. You can see the bones inside. A little disconcerting I don't see that last bone, so I hope that worked out fine. So by default, it comes in and creates your armature, which is your skeleton that's controlling things, and then you've got the cube that we use. The texture is automatically brought in, and also if you have an animation done, it automatically attaches an animation. And you'll see down here, because we created the 2 when we brought it in, we've got 2 named animations automatically, bend forward and bend up. I'll go ahead and press play on this. All right, so I screwed them up completely. That's annoying. So let's look at fixing that. We shall now, so we've, your entire animation is actually a completely new scene. So what we'll do is we'll flip back to the old scene, to previous scene, and you will see we actually haven't added one yet. Crap. All right, so we'll import that guy again, and I won't set up the clips this time. So import 3D scene. How do I delete you here? Oh, X. All right, no clips. Make sure the animation is brought in as normal. And unfortunately, all right. Overwrite existing scene, import and open. All right, so now we're back. Ooh, all right. Now we just crashed Godot. Let's go back there again. Kaboom. Let's undo our kaboom. All right, so we're back in our scene. Import 3D scene. It's probably not liking the overwriting. So let's grab it again. Save that guy on my desktop, I believe. Box 2. You shall go there. I shall overwrite you. And frames per second, we're baked in at 15. That's why everything was screwy. Okay. So you can actually set your frame rate there. So we'll do it the other way anyways. So there was the one way you saw. So now we're in here, and it will actually only have one frame attached. So the default playlist will only have the one animation called default. So here we are. We are now inside of our imported version. Come here and drop this down. Hey, why are you all messed up? Let's see if I... Okay, I've messed that scene up completely. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna just... I think I have to delete the old one, file system level, and we'll create this and do it all from scratch. Alright, so I went to the file system, deleted that guy completely. We shall give a different name. So, bring you in, box 2D. We will save you to the root, overwrite. Alright, clips. There are no clips. It was caching settings here, and we will actually want my frame rate to be more like 30 frames per second, which is how I created it. And let's import now. So zoom out. So there was leftover. What just happened there basically is those, for some reason, the two clips that I created earlier deleted. For some reason, it put them back in when I did a re-import, even though they were empty, which caused a whole lot of not happiness. So now we're back here. We go down. Now there is no scene. The friggin' hell is going on? All right, you know what? Just as fast, I'm gonna create a completely new project. Get rid of all the junk. All right, brand new scene, fresh, nothing to screw up. And as you saw, I'm a little lazier creating the lighting this time, but otherwise identical. So we're coming back. We're going to go ahead and do our import. Select our model. Select our path. And done. So all of our defaults should be completely fine. We'll stay with the 15 frames per second. We will not create any clips. We're just going to bring it in as a stock normal import. So just go in and boom. So there we are. We're inside of it. Like so. And as you'll see, it creates a spatial, which is your base class here, which contains an armature, which is the control structure or the bones underneath our system, the model itself, which is a mesh instance named cube, so it automatically imports. If we had lights, etc., they would all be created as part of this hierarchy as well. But in this case, we stripped them all out earlier when we were dealing with Blender, so they didn't get recreated here. And then if your armature has animations, it also brings in a animation player. Now, it is not part of armature. It's actually parented to spatial, which is important in a moment. So that is our 3D model. Now, what it does, that animation player brought in a single type of animation called default. And if I press play, we will see both parts of it. And that's it. So there is our model brought in with the one animation which has all of it in called default. Now what we're going to do is we're going to split that into two animation sections. And we dealt with animation a little bit earlier on in dealing with 2D, but it's the exact same process. So see, when you select your animation player, this animation dialog comes up down here. And you can see your list of available animations right there. So why did you bring up that guy? I don't need you. But that's where you can select your animations, etc. And what we actually want to do is go ahead and duplicate the animation twice. So we got copy and copy. So let's grab, let's see, copy. And we shall dub the bend up. and copy, and we shall dub the bend forward. Okay, so we now have two animations, which basically all three of these are exactly the same. So bend forward, now we'll have all of the things, the full set of animation. And so we actually want bend forward to be the last half of that animation. We go over here to this pen icon, and it brings up the editor for us. And let's give this guy a little bit more room. You see, each of these is the keyframes. These are the keyframes that we created earlier in Blender, and we want that's the reset keyframe. That's where it all ends. So this is kind of all junk to us now. And what we want to do here is just kind of come in and just grab all of them and hit delete. Grab half of them and hit delete. So now we just have part of our animation in here. Now I just need to figure out where I move this forward. So now I want to take these frames of animation right here and move them to 0. And our animation should probably be about 2 seconds in length, not 4. So if I did this all right, we're back at the first frame. Now let's go ahead and play it like so. All right, it's not matching up the keyframes that well, but it is in fact set. All right, I think I may not be getting to the last keyframe. There's my length. Okay, so that's a little too long, 2.2. All right, that'll work. So let's go ahead. There. So there is our first frame over a period of blah, blah, blah seconds. We could actually shrink it down a little bit, but no problem. So that is bend forward redefined. Now let's go back to bend up. And so now we want the first half of our animation only. So we just go ahead and delete all the previous keyframes, like so. And we shall set these to about 2.1. And now, let's see how that works. There you go. So that's how you can, once you get back into Godot, if you do all of your animations in sequence, like what we created earlier, we can split them up here using the animation tool. It's not ideal, and in a perfect world, the Colada format would actually have those different animation clips in there and automatically do that for you. But if you're coming from a Blender background, at least from everything I tried, and I spent hours on this little bastard, but I just could not get it to work. So you're going to have to potentially cut your animations up into pieces. But here's the process. It's not hard at all, other than potentially figuring out your durations or lengths, your exact lengths. But otherwise, you just basically rearrange your keyframes into different little animation names. So now we have the 3 sets. We have bend forward, bend up, and default. And we'll just go ahead. Default's not really a great name, so full. So now we have 3 animations attached to our player. Excellent. So let's now save our scene. And this created a new scene called Box 2, I think. Now what you're going to want to do is flip back to your previous scene. And it's there. So now we're back in new underscore scene. And we want to go ahead and add that scene we just created. So how do we do this? Well, we come over here and use this plus icon that we've never used before. And this instantiates a scene as a node, which is very cool. So root of our node, we actually want it to be here. We don't want it to be slave to the camera or the directional light. Just click plus, pick your other scene. So in this case, box 2, and boom, there it is. Let's go ahead and rotate it so that it's consistent. But that is how you create a new one. And we could keep adding more and more and more. Now you come over here, you see it's named spatial. We'll call this instead box. But that was an instance of our scene. And you saw earlier the hierarchy was, spatial at the top. It had an armature, which in turn owned the mesh. And it also had our animation player. Well, if you click right here, you can actually say, you can either flip over and open it up automatically. Oh, so let's save our scene. So scene, save scene. So you can click here quickly and automatically flip to the other one. And so we can flip back if we wish. So let's go back to our previous scene. Or you can say show children. And you can see the bits that go together to make up. So if I open up this armature, you'll see the cube that makes it. So you've got either way of approaching how it's displayed here, but more or less your 3D models are imported as complete scenes. So if they have lights and all that stuff in them, it's part of the hierarchy. So it's a very heavyweight thing to doing, so that's why you would use a static mesh if you did not need all of the stuff that comes with being a full scene import. But now we're in. Let's go grab our camera here for a second. Come on, camera, come on. Grab it this way, preview it. There we go. So if I press play, there you go. Very cool. So we now have the scene in. Oh, let's go ahead and use our animation, and we'll put the animation in here. All right, that works for me. So dealing with animation is, if you've done any of the programming so far, you could almost guess everything we're about to do. It's pretty simple. So first off, we'll go get node, and our node is now called, I think I called it box. Yeah. Box, like so. Oops. Like so. And then box has an animation player. So that's our animation, and then we just go ahead and play. And then you've got, the nice thing is you're even seeing the auto completion being shown. So let's start with bend forward being called like so. And that's it. That's how you play an animation on a shape. Why didn't you play? I think I'm not wired up. Let's see, node, ready. Why are you not being attached? All right, this happens sometimes too, and it's very annoying. So let's go make sure that our node is actually attached. There you go. I don't know why it does that. So there you go. There is the animation playing. So let's mix it up. So func input event if event.type equals what's the code? I don't remember right now. Input event key. You know what? We'll leave it at that. And in that event, we shall bend up. So basically, press any key, switch the animation up. Let's go ahead and play that. So there's our default. It's not on loop yet. I'll show you how to change that in a second. And then we press any key. Oh, okay. I'm not very smart today. Set in set process input equals true. Let's actually wire it up so this event handler is called. Try this again. So animation plays, press any key, other animation plays. Very cool. As you saw, I created a bit of a weirdness when I cut it up. And finally, we could just grab all of this guy. Actually, can I do it right here? And power of cut and paste. So we can grab our animation player, do a get animation call, grab our animation that we wish, and set loop equals true. And this basically is just getting that animation and telling it to loop forever. And that should go and reset and go again. And then when I press any key, we switch it up. So that's it. That's actually bringing a Colada model into Godot engine. You see how animations work. You can use the existing animation editor. Once again, we covered animation editor back in dealing with 2D, but as you saw, the process is exactly the same, and there's a lot of functionality hidden down there. You can keyframe the crap out of everything. You can actually put functions inside of your timeline that'll kick off or fire. So you could actually have one animation that triggers another one, for example. There's a lot you can do with that keyframe animator. Go back and see the earlier tutorial on animation. Even though it's 2D specific, all of the stuff you learned there is equally applicable here. But you saw all of the different processes that can go together here to make 3D models work and work pretty flawlessly, pretty seamlessly. The only catch you've got is that animation process is a little bit painful, is that you do your animation as a single long timeline, potentially at least coming out of Blender, and then you have to cut it up into separate different animations if you wish. Or I suppose theoretically you could do one animation per file, but that seems kind of hacky to me, to be honest. So that is the process that is dealing with Colada animations brought into the Godot engine. It's very powerful. There's a lot you can do in here. That animation tool itself can also be used for doing blending and transitioning between animations, for creating dynamic animations, etc., for doing that process. So there's a lot of power hidden in behind the scenes. But out of the blocks, just using straightforward animation, quite simple process for the most part. So I hope you enjoyed that. Once again, one final plug. I am also available on Patreon. I have an account on Patreon. If you wish to support, you want to help make more videos like this possible, please consider clicking that link down below. Also, your support is appreciated. Though your viewing and continued watching is definitely appreciated as it is. Again, you go to Gamefromscratch.com. You can find all of the source code, etc., the table of contents for this entire series. Again, it'll be linked below. We'll probably be doing a little bit more 3D for Godot coming up. I'm not sure specifically what we're going to cover next because we just got the basics down for sure. But there is a bit more to go through. We've got navigation for sure, a few other things, hit detection, etc. So we'll be covering those off shortly. If there's something specific you want to see covered, please let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed that. Cheerio. Bye.